Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, and Happy New Year, everybody. My name's TankRunner, and welcome to another episode of Drawing Roulettes and World Building. I know this time of year should be spent being thankful for what you have, surrounding yourself with your loved ones, but as I sit here in front of an open fire, trying to ignore the fact that this has been the worst year that I've ever seen in my entire life, it's hard to notice the smell of chestnuts roasting once you realize the fireplace is actually a dumpster filled with orphans. Do you get what I'm saying? Shit's f***ed. But we're gonna try our best, in a way that only us on YouTube can. We're gonna try and think about the people we had on this platform that made this year a little more tolerable. So today, I'm gonna try and make YouTube, and to a lesser extent, the internet, into a living world. I've randomly selected a few YouTubers that I'm gonna draw, and then I'm gonna give them some lore so they all fit together in this new setting. As a strong start for all of these characters, I'm going to pick some D&D classes that either fit their personalities or connect well with their past experiences. That'll help point me in a direction for their designs, which brings me to my first real hurdle here. These are real people. I'm not going to pretend to know them personally. Obviously, a YouTuber can be genuine, and I'm sure some are, but it's not my place to decide where that line is between a person and a character they play for my entertainment. That being said, I'm absolutely going to do that. I'm building a fantasy setting here with small pieces of real life sprinkled in for inspiration. I'm not claiming to know anything about these people. Now, enough covering my own ass. We've got a lot of work to do, so let's get started. Mark and Ethan of Unus Annus. Mark, Paladin and Warlock. Ethan, Monk and Warlock. Across the land of the Orbitus Plateau, there exists only one bastion of relative safety, Teleterra. This massive coastal city was created a long time ago, but is currently under the control of Vault. The virtual archive of linking technology is a corporation at the forefront of communication and information storage, and after great success, found themselves the parent company to many other businesses and organizations, some even outside of their field. On a normal day in Teleterra, you'll find men and women walking the city streets, talking merrily about how Vault made all of this possible. But hidden away where Vault can't hear them, there's another side to Teleterra. Hushed voices telling tales of neighbors gone missing, private information being stolen and sold away, opinion, speech, even thought, all being policed. Vault will pretend to give a shit, but don't you dare get between them and their bottom line. People lucky enough to only have bruises and broken bones at the hands of Vault enforcers, those of us with missing loved ones, we know they're not our caretakers. It's just a facade created by some team sitting at the top of that tower, looking down on all of us. A small few are dissatisfied with quiet words and feigning smiles. People who rise above, who go even further beyond. They become icons that the people of Teleterra can flock to. Shining examples of what this city could be. Enforcer Mark Fishbach is one of those people. His overwhelming ability to connect with people gained him respect among his community, so much so that Vault had no choice but to recognize his status and offer him a job. The city itself had made a champion of him, and he wasn't going to let them down. He accepted the position of enforcer, hoping to bridge the gap between Vault and the citizens of Teleterra. After several years, Mark began to realize that no matter how hard he tried to make real changes to benefit Teleterra and Vault, even in situations where he pushed back against Vault publicly, minor adjustments would be made to appease the crowds, but nothing real would ever come of it. The community was much more likely to listen to him than other enforcers, so they used him to give people a peaceful means to rally, an outlet to blow off steam. To remain content. It's better to guide protest through a pawn than allow unbridled rebellion. He was an enforcer, in title alone. The information as to what happened to Mark after this realization is still obscure, but it led to the enforcer deciding to do what very few have ever done, venture off beyond the city walls. He eventually found himself at an outpost not too far from Teleterra. It was during his stay here that he met a man named Ethan Nestor, a young monk turned courier, traveling in and out of restricted zones, traversing the city's terrain in a way to enter unlicensed and deliver illegal goods and information, all while avoiding Vault's gaze. Despite their differences, the pair spent their days learning from each other. Together, they came to a new understanding. After many long walks and deep conversation, they realized what they had started to create, and decided it was their duty to share their newfound wisdom. Together, they would show the people there's another way, a new way to live in Teleterra. Mark and Ethan journeyed across the Orbitus Plateau, sharing their thoughts in all of their absurdity and splendor with anyone willing to listen. Life is about experiences, whether you're prepared for them or not. It's about making the most with what little time you have, despite all the imperfections. Death. It was something to respect, but not fear. Leave behind people who loved you, and maybe share a few laughs along the way. Soon, commoners sprang to life, reminded of something that Vault had taken from them long ago. Banners of black and white began to fly above their homes. Unus Annus was whispered and repeated, almost as a greeting amongst those that understood the message. Memento Mori was carved into archways, to let those who entered know they were amongst people of like minds and kind souls. Remember death, the people chanted in the streets. Vault had allowed their figurehead to gain real power. A minority that was forced to speak behind closed doors was now gathering in public spaces. They had grown too loud and too brave for their own good. Vault had underestimated Teleterra and its citizens. This was a mistake they would not allow to happen again. Danny and Aaron of Game Grumps. Aaron, barbarian. Danny, obvious bard. Teleterra is a bright and colorful place compared to the rest of the Orbitus Plateau, to the point of feeling strangely alien. The fact that this city can even pretend to have law and order almost seems unnatural. The difference between either side of the wall seemingly an impossible divide. However, despite all of the political intrigue and ideological differences, most citizens still see Teleterra as the safest place to find yourself on an average day. The plateau is full of strife and dangerous magic, thieves and murderers looking to take everything from you, ravenous monsters that want nothing more than to strip flesh from bone, dark places home to horrific abominations that can snuff out even the brightest light. People who live inside Teleterra rest easy knowing that none of those things will ever reach their doors. But some cannot help but wonder, how bad could it really be out there? And in that quick lapse of judgment is where others see a chance to make a profit. In a quiet part of Teleterra, as the sun sets, lines begin to form. It's never in the same place twice in a row, but word of where to go always seems to reach those that need it. Below pubs, abandoned factories, private nightclubs, wherever it is, the crowds always show up for a good old-fashioned pit fight. Others have tried to replicate the magic, but none have ever come close to the exciting spectacle and sprinkle of danger that comes with the very specific brand of Aaron Hansen and Dan Avedon. Come one, come all, citizens of all ages, prepare for blood! Splash zone seats for those of you with strong stomachs. Tonight, for one night only, watch a manticore. Yes, you heard me right, a manticore. Go toe-to-toe with Aaron, the Grump. While it's true not all of these bouts take place on property owned by anyone at the time, the cost of finding such a location and keeping it quiet, outfitting it with minimal safety precautions for the audience, and transporting a deadly monster through Teleterra and storing it for the next show, it's almost more trouble than it's worth. Almost. They definitely know how to give the people what they want because there is plenty of other things to experience there besides watching two professional gladiators at work. The banter between them is unrivaled, and a pissed-off Hansen keeps the audience more than entertained. During the show, they run a betting corner to keep things interesting. While most show up for fights with creatures they hope never to encounter for themselves, the high rollers arrive after the corpses have been carted away. Beautiful women of all ages attend, there for fun, music, and Danny. The man's ego isn't fueled by how many butts he can put into seats, but by how many ladies he can serenade after the bloodshed is over. The two showmen hit the stage again, this time to perform as a band, and the party goes on well into the night. People arrive from all over the city to partake in endless booze and a feast made from the day's kill. The music doesn't stop until the sun begins to rise. Aaron and Danny then shuffle home to get some well-earned rest, before waking up just a few hours later to do it all over again. There truly is no rest for the wicked. Jenna and Julian of Jenna Marbles. Jenna, sorcerer and druid. Julian, familiar. Teleterra is a vast city, mostly covered in metal and stone, but toward the port exists a chunk of land outside of the walls that still benefits from the protection of Teleterra. These glades are mostly used as farmland, but a few of these plots are owned by people who just want to feel soil under their feet. Among our hills sits a manor that was home to a famous sorceress and her pack of wild hounds. No one knew when this sorceress first came to Teleterra. Some said she was always here, but no one could ever recall her arrival. She provided relief to the community in the form of protective wards that seemed to keep the land safe. And if that wasn't enough, the hounds dissuaded those with ill intent from entering her domain. Many wished to speak with her, to show thanks for what she did for them, but it was always hard to seek an audience with the lady of the manor. Many resorted to giving gifts to her hounds, who were regarded as honored guests in many homes across the glades. Those who made their way to the manor were met by the witch's familiar, who accepted any pleasantries before kindly asking all visitors to leave the property. There was a rumor going around not too long ago that the creature loves to cook, and that someone had made their way inside the manor by distracting him with ingredients and valuable utensils. Regardless of whether anyone ever saw the sorceress or not, every denizen of this small community could feel her presence throughout their day, making everything just a little bit better. Which is why the day she left, it was felt across Teleterra. It happened without warning, other than the foul omens that swept through the farmlands the night before. People quickly made their way to the manor, where they were greeted by her family. She was gone. Missing, perhaps. Some knew of the dark ghost that haunted the lady's past before she came to reside in the western glade. Had they finally caught up to her? Most refused to believe that there existed any shade, banshee, or ghoul powerful enough to dispatch of an entity such as the owner of that manor. Maybe she left to hunt them down, to free herself of them once and for all. Many speculated, and many were wrong. The hounds became listless, searching for their mother, clinging to her familiar for company until she would return. The familiar sent everyone back to their homes so that he may continue his work. No matter what happened to her, it was important that someone remained to take up her mantle. Despite his sadness, he does everything in his power to support the vacuum her absence has made. He does his best to keep morale high, but it has become increasingly more difficult, with Vault's grip tightening around Teleterra, and by extension, our province. Many have lost hope. But there remain a few who light vigils and send prayers that maybe, one day, she will return home to Teleterra. Felix, Pewdiepie, Ranger and Cleric. Deep below the surface of the Orbitus Plateau run currents of arcane energy. These currents intersect at a phenomenon known as the grid. Teleterra was originally built at this location as a mining outpost to gather any runoff the grid might produce. Those in charge of Teleterra knew the importance of this power and dispersed it across the rest of the world. After realizing what they had stumbled upon, people from all over flocked to Teleterra to capitalize on this new energy source, including the founders of what was soon to be known as Vault. But that was a long time ago, and Teleterra is now a metropolis. In the last decade or so, Vault saw an opportunity to gain a profit, and in doing so, the Tether was created. An advanced bit of technology, though many are unsure how it works. All the energy mined from the Earth travels through that machine, where Vault can then use it to throttle the transfer of energy to the plateau. From now on, if you wanted to benefit from this source of power, you would have to live on their land, pay their taxes, and adhere to their laws. There were those who voiced their concerns with this sudden overreach. The grid was as natural as air. It could not and should not be controlled. Vault disagreed. During a recent takeover, they had gained ownership of not just Teleterra, but the land it sat on. The grid was theirs to do with what they pleased, and they were no longer willing to have this endless resource just handed out for free. So war came to the Orbitus Plateau. Vault soldiers were well funded and well armed. The resistance, however, was mostly common people who had lived, breathed, and died in this city for generations. Many either joined Vault and agreed to their rules, or were banished into the wildlands. One such commander was a man named Felix. He would not be leashed like the others. Felix chose exile. He would have his freedom, even if it meant choosing a life of hardship outside of the city walls. He eventually ended up in the hands of the Church of Endless Water, a group that had begun making a name for themselves across all of Orbitus. It takes in the outcasts and lost souls and gives them purpose. Those who worship at the water temple often pray to catch just a glimpse of the spirits in the water, the guardians of the church. Felix naturally settled in with the church for safety in numbers, but soon found himself listening to their doctrine. The war had changed him. He had lost many men to ruthless killers, and he could use some newfound faith. However, he started to notice some inconsistencies. If the Holy Trinity were just spirits, why did they need so many offerings? Where did all of the meat and coin go once it was taken to the altar? Why were so many villagers chosen for the pilgrimage, only to never be seen again? He was never given these answers. He just found more questions. So one night, he once again set off to find a place for himself. He wandered the plateau for years, only finding the companionship of a noble wolf, who he called Sven. Many moons of hard work culminated in Felix and Sven carving a ranch for themselves out of the landscape. Sven would herd the livestock and protect the land and his master from all sorts of creatures that would creep out of the darkness. Felix learned about the seasons and the soil, hanging up his soldier's life for that of a farmer. They would spend their luxury time together, running along the beach of a nearby lake. Sven and Felix were adept swimmers and would often race across the lake. But one day, Sven was pulled down by a current and stranded in an underwater cavern. Felix set about spending all of his resources to rescue Sven. He would be putting his whole livelihood on the line. But he knew that he would risk it all to save his friend's life. After what seemed like an eternity of planning, he dove deep into the cold for Sven and pulled him from the dark waters, safe and sound. But at the same time, the Church of Endless Water was hunting for a heretic. The church had been searching for Felix and came across his new home. They set the ranch ablaze, believing Felix to be inside. The animals, crops, everything he built with his own 2 hands. It was all gone. When Felix and Sven, exhausted, starved, and soaked, finally crested the hill back home, they were greeted with nothing but smoke and flames. The church had left a calling card, a sign to all those who would think to oppose them. But Felix would not flee again. Sven and his master armed themselves for battle. There was a reason he survived the war with Volt, and the church was about to find out why. His wrath rained down upon them, killing the acolytes who hunted him and destroyed all he had just for questioning. Sven took a pound of flesh from anyone who dare try and hurt his master. He fought through the temple and stood before the avatars of the Holy Trinity, trident in hand. After this day, those who survived the sacking of the water temple referred to Felix in only one way: God Killer. Felix and Sven became nomads for a time. They had become completely independent of any outside source. They would go after whoever and whatever they deemed to be a threat to Orbitus, unafraid of any backlash that might come of it, as long as they knew what they were doing was right and would better the plateau as a whole. No one knows where Felix is now. He never stays in one place for very long. People have seen him during short periods of time when he comes to a settlement looking for work or trade, but that's it. Some have claimed to spot him in and around Teleterra, but no one can confirm this, not even Vault. Could another resistance be brewing in the underbelly of Teleterra? So how do you guys think I did? I really like how most of these turned out. I think a change for next time, though, is I'll focus more on making the tone of the art match up with their lore. Some of the writing prompts had gotten a little heavier than what I had originally planned. But I like the story we're building here, so I'll adjust from now on. I'd like to continue working on this setting, so if you guys have some YouTubers you'd like to see me add to this world, or maybe you have some ideas for prompts you'd like to see me do in the future, go ahead and let me know in the comments below. If you want to take a crack at drawing any of the prompts I did, or want to send me some artwork to flesh out this world, please send them to me over on my Twitter. I'd love to see what you guys make. But until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.